Welcome to the Probably Emergency Still Are the Tims podcast, where the love you take is equal to the love you make, and that's not a reference to Davey in any shape or form. So basically we thought we'd come on because obviously things have moved on even since we podded on Tuesday. And I'm going to come to you, Davey, right away. How big a crisis are Celtic in right now?
Do you know, absolute, utter crisis, Paul. You've seen the Maeda comments, how that scenario's unfolded. We briefly spoke about the Seagrest one, and Big Sutton's had his say, and it takes a lot for folk to come out and I think and say these things. Usually they're kept in house and whatever else, but for Maeda's representatives or whoever to put that out there, it just shows the total disharmony that's coursing through Celtic for every aspect, for fans to players to the manager to the non-existent board members and everybody in between.
Well, let's just tell the Maeda story before we go into Phelan's opinion. And I'm going to blow my own trumpet because it's the only way you get heard these days. I had this in Substacks in June, and I was telling this to people yesterday about Maeda wanting to leave. Besiktas came in with a €17 million bid in June, which the club turned down, and they were asked to be kept abreast of the situation, which they weren't. And then they basically came in on deadline day and said, name your price. And they said he's not for sale. Now, what Maeda was under the impression is that he would be let go on deadline day. He didn't want anything to distract from it. He didn't want anybody to think he wasn't at it or anything like that. But he wasn't being kept updated or abreast of things. And so he was kind of like, well, what's going on here? And he was basically told, you can't leave till January because we haven't got a replacement. And he was rightly said, well, hold on a minute here. I told you at the end of last season I wanted to go. You've had 2-3 months to get a replacement. And I think that's what's basically prompted the statement, which came out yesterday, Phelan.
Yeah. That's a very good synopsis of the story, because I was wondering that myself, Paul, and we've been given out that the club hadn't replacements lined up for the likes of Kyogo and Kuhn.
Mm-hmm.
So if the club was wanted to keep Maeda because he had no replacement, I would applaud that. But now that caveat is they told him he could go. And that's symptomatic of, as Davey said on Tuesday, just the lack of respect to players and their lives, really. As you said, Davey, that was a very good point. And it's reflecting in Maeda's performances. I think sometimes when players are off form because they want to move, you kind of say, well, fuck you, keep your your head down, keep working. But I don't think we can question the professionalism and commitment of Maeda, and especially his work rate. He's probably the most honest player I've ever seen in a Celtic shirt.
Yeah.
But now, given what you've just told us, Paul, that again comes back to just the arrogance of the board or whoever is in charge of this stuff. It's disgraceful.
Well, let me blow my own trumpet again, because as you guys know, back in June I started doing Substacks that were directed towards Desmond. And the reason that I'd done that was very, very simple. I have been a long time critic of Peter Lawwell, and I was given the nod back in May to say Peter Lawwell doesn't have any influence in this club anymore. And I was very sceptical of that at the time, because I'm thinking, this guy, we all know what he's like, and he's egocentric and all that sort of stuff. But then I was kind of shown a couple of things and pointed at a couple of things which made me think, this is actually, this might actually be happening. And then when the kind of transfer window opened, and you're kind of like, right, let's go, Kuhn's away, all that sort of stuff, now happening. And I was told categorically by an absolute dynamite source that Dermot Desmond is holding up the transfers, right? So I was really attacked for that, right? I was given, and I'm not just talking about random folk on the internet, I'm talking about people that I know came back to me, oh no, you can't say that about Dermot and all this and blah, 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 blah. And I said, I'll just say it as long as it's true. I'm not making it up. I'm not just having a kind of wild punt at things. I'm actually getting the dynamite source information here that allows me to put this out there. And it went on and it went on and it went on through the transfer window. And it got to the point where literally the club was paralysed. It was in a state of paralysis because every time Dermot Desmond was asked to sign off on a deal, he was basically told, he was like, no, we're not offering that, and we're going to offer half that, or we'll offer them over so many months, or whatever it might be, and blah, 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 blah. And he put the club in a state of paralysis. That's why no players came in. The players that did come in were like club project signings, all under a certain level. Now, I heard somebody saying somewhere about, Dermot Desmond wants to sign off when anybody over 3 million. That's always been the case. It shifted about 7-8 years ago from 2 to 3 million. That's always been the case. But what's the difference now is that he's refusing to sign off on players. And that is the reason why we never signed anybody we wanted. Even the players that we did sign towards the end, Bally and Sebastian Boy and all that, they're not big pedigree signings, right? They're absolutely not. You had the guy out there at Ibrox playing on the wing. He's not a winger. He's just not a winger. And I think everybody's seen that. Why is he not take players on? Why is he not got pace? Because he's not a winger. So the club has been in a state of paralysis under Dermot Desmond, and it continues to be. It continues to be because you've heard all sorts of stuff this week, right, that said, Michael Nicholson's going to do an interview with Sky. Now, I overuse this analogy all the time, but Einstein's definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Michael Nicholson is not going to put himself in front of an interviewer for 2 reasons, right? One, he isn't that type of guy. He doesn't do interviews. He doesn't like being in the public. And 2, it's only partly his fault. The real fault lies with the man in Dublin. And on top, I'll let you come in here because I know I'm talking a lot here. I heard Alan Morrison of the Huddle Exchange podcast breakdown to saying that the situation that Celtic are in is equivalent to when Mike Ashley owned Newcastle. And I think that's an absolutely perfect way of looking at it. Is that Mike Ashley, as Alan said, went in there and thinking, this will be good. I'll own a Premier League football club and I'll watch Premier League football every week and we'll hobnob and have a bevy with my pals and all that. But then he realised when you want to challenge and compete and win trophies and leagues and that, it costs money. And he wasn't willing to spend it. And that is exactly where Dermot Desmond is now. He is refusing to spend money. But the difference between Ashley and Desmond is it's not Desmond's money we want to spend. It's our money. Phelan, you're a big pal of Desmond. What do you think?
You'll defend him. He's a fellow Dublin on that sort of matter.
Shamrock Rovers, mate.
If I'm a pal of Desmond, what am I doing here?
You're a spy.
I'd be the worst spy in the world.
I know. I was just thinking that.
I know. It's like you say, Paul. It's the fans' money, and football without fans, as the great Jock said, is nothing. It's increasingly clear that you can't get blood out of a stone in terms of Desmond seemingly spending money, and as we all know, there's so much money in the bank. Domestic dominance, it's not enough anymore, because everyone is lagging so far behind, and we're being dragged back into the pack now as well, because they won't invest, and other clubs are getting better. The Huns, despite their shit start, probably will get better. They can only get better. Other clubs, Hearts are looking stronger this season. Hibs have done well. So we're being dragged into the pack, and that shouldn't be happening. Domestic dominance isn't enough. It's all about Europe. It's all about competing, and we did that last year and should have built on it. And every great club builds even when they've won from a position of strength. They build again, they go again, because things get stale.
Sure.
Players move on, players get old, young players are emerging. So you have to keep building, no matter from a position of strength. That's just taking things for granted and just assuming, yeah, we'll win the treble again, or we'll win 2 out of 3. That's not good enough anymore. You have to keep investing, and how that's going to change, God only knows, because the silence from Celtic Park, like in the last couple of weeks, is deafening.
Well, see, before I bring Davey in there, Phelim, it's a great point you make, right? I spoke to a Celtic employee at the end of May, and I said, this is the time to get rid of about 9 players. And to go back to Alan Morrison again, he's like reading my mind, because he was like, we should have sold Carter, Vickers, Hattati, and Maeda, cashed in and rebuilt, right? And the Celtic employee looked at me like I had 2 heats and went, what? And I said, you've got to, that's the way how it works in football now. Well, who else does that, like? Everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You get 2 to 3 year cycles and then they go.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Correct.
But Davey, see this thing, right, this model that we've got, selling players, buying low, selling high, and that kind of thing. You know what I've never heard? What is the point here? Is it to progress ourselves to be a big European club, or is it just to put bonus and dividends in the pockets of a select few people?
Well, it's been plain to see, Paul, to answer your question, that it is basically to line the pockets of the ones that take the money out of the club, and it's not to enhance the team really in any way, because you look at the players that we have brought in and sold on for a profit, and if they've been replaced with, I mentioned to you the other day there, if we bring in a 20 million on a player, we're not asking that whole 20 million. We'd be happy if we went and spent 10, 12 million pound on an adequate replacement and then nurtured them and everything else and stuff like that. But that's not the case. But to go back to your couple of points there in the 2 individuals, with Lawwell, Peter Lawwell, personally, I almost feel a sense of guilt for everything that I've put in that man's direction in the last few years. Because he was the public face, he was the only one that was there to take it on board, and it's been plain to see it's not been him. And as for the other one, Mr. Nicholson, again, I'd mentioned when you had got me and the man who's missing today, Mr. Mohammed, into a fan event. It was a closed event at Celtic Park, and he was there, and this was with Chris McCart and Woods and everything else, and it was predominantly about when Barrowfield was getting built. And the man sat there, and we were in for about an hour and 20 minutes, and I think he said 2 words. So people was expecting him to come out in Sky Sports and lay all the ills or all the plans or whatever the fuck is going on at Celtic Park just isn't going to happen. And my last thing
it's not going to happen. And also, I know John Paul Taylor. I've seen his name bandied about everywhere. He's confirmed that Michael Nicholson's seen this and and I said to him, what? And he said, I've not told that to anybody. Because ultimately these people can only speak for themselves. They can't have people. I could be in a pub tonight and somebody could say, "What's Phelim Warren really like?" And this, I say, "Well, I can tell you what I know, but I can't. Can't speak for you. It's ultimately got to come out of their mouth." But the problem, as I see it right now, is that Celtic are in grave danger, Phelim, of spilling into a season like 2021. Right? And
Definitely.
the big difference between then and now is they could hide behind COVID. Well, they can't do it now. That time we ended up with fences around Celtic Park. We ended up with guys going there and breaking lockdown measures and all that to protest and all that kind of thing. What gets flung at you all the time is, oh, he's self-entitled. It's not to do with self-entitlement. If Celtic went out and spent £100 million in the summer and never won a trophy, I'd be like, well, there's not much more you can do. Maybe you have to look at scouting. Maybe you have to look at recruitment, all that kind of stuff. But this is either gross incompetence or complete negligence, Phelim.
No, it's the latter. It has to be the latter. These guys didn't. I'm sounding like what you call him, the fella on Reggie Perrin. I didn't get where I am today. These
CJ.
These people didn't get where they are today by being incompetent, Paul. So as far as I'm concerned, it's dereliction of duty. Celtic is a way of life. Again, to quote another former player, Tommy Burns, it's a cause, it's a way of life. It's nobody's plaything, and it's nobody's club. It's our club. It's the people at Glasgow's club. It's the people in New York and Perth and
Yes,
Europe and
absolutely.
everywhere. It's their club, and it's just it's so frustrating for all the supporters. And I think I would say this overwhelming majority of the fans now all over the world have had enough, and enough is enough.
Yeah.
And it's time to, it's time for it's just, as you say, Paul. I think it's heading already to be worse than the COVID season.
Yeah, I mean, Davey, the Phelan makes some great points here. Like, there's nobody, just because, like, if they could stay where you do in the East End of Glasgow, they could stay in Sydney. It doesn't make them any better or worse a supporter. Or you see, if you say, I go to all the games, well, you try to tell me you're a better supporter than somebody that gets up in Melbourne at 3 o'clock in the morning every time you watch Celtic and that kind of thing. It does. And the other thing I would go to hit back at people who, the other mob saying they're self-entitled. We're in a point where we think the people that run Celtic Football Club aren't doing a good enough job. So we're angry and we're mobilising and we're organising. That's what we do because we care. We've done it in 93, 94 because we care. It means so much to us. Just because they never done that doesn't make us self-entitled. But the thing about it is, Davey, I mean, where is this going to lead in terms of the team that we have right now? Right? We're in this position now. We've got guys all over the place in international football and we go to Rugby Park next weekend. Are the team going to be affected by all this, or are they got the ability to shut it out, do you think?
No, I don't think. I think we're kind of past the stage of expecting them to shut it out, Paul, because it's obviously affecting them with the performances this season, and we'd like to maybe adopt a siege mentality to get us to, I was going to say January and hope we spend money, but fuck's sake, that's not going to happen either, is it? And the big worry is that there's players that are carrying the can on the field, and we're talking about your assets, your Hitatis and your Carter Vickers, and apart from Hitati's brilliant goal up at Pataudry, I mean, they've been so poor this season. Carter Vickers getting the ball away, the performances on the park, and then the men like John Kenny, who could be the only thing that I can see to change that, are not really getting a look in. So I'm worried short term and even in the longer term, shitting myself, because Failing talk about that domestic dominance, that's fucking seriously under threat this season. I mean, Aberdeen, they broke that in my eyes last season. They broke their dominance with winning that Scottish Cup, because when we were poor, we still won. We still had that mentality to win the games. That part's away.
Aye.
The mentality's not there this season.
No, I know. And I did notice you going for the Irish folk that Phelan mustered this week with his Liam Scales video, which I should say, by the way, and it's not really about numbers, but that's now got over 40,000 views on TikTok. So I reckon you'll be on the Late Late Show next week.
I'm not going on that. That's the fucking last show I go on, I can tell you.
But it is, I mean, the domestic dominance, it's all right to say it's not enough now and all that. And I heard the boy, that Craig, what's his name, for the Terrace Show, he was saying, surely Celtic want to be like a big, expansive European club that are in there every year and accumulating money and getting players and that. But they didn't. They just want to qualify. That's it.
Yeah.
And the domestic dominance, as I say, it isn't enough when you've got all that money. But if it goes, I tell you something, the anger that's in society now, Phelan anyway, abated by Celtic winning trophies for Celtic supporters, if that goes, what happens then?
Well, that's another ball game entirely. Given the numbers in around Celtic Park, I won't say mob mentality, but there would be, like you touched on in 93, 94. Enough. There'll be a breaking point eventually if this continues. To go back to Davy's point briefly, I don't completely agree with you, Davy, about this affecting the players. I think players get on with it. They're paid to do their job, and I think a lot of that for them is just noise. I think we touched on it on Tuesday that it's a bit stale at the moment. I think there's a difference between it being stale and them being affected by what's going on. I don't really believe that what's going on is affecting them, other than players who maybe should have been allowed go are not being allowed go. I think the players they've shown, we've conceded one goal all season in competitive football. I think that shows that we're committed. There's a good team ethic there, but I just think the mindset, as we said, against the Huns was far too negative, and that's on Brendan. So I don't think there's the players are affected really that much to an extent, other than the likes of Maeda who've been spun a pile of shite, really,
The play. You're right. I mean, the players shouldn't be affected. Their job is to play football. You know what I mean? Play and train. That's it.
Yeah.
But we have a statement going round now, which people are adding their signatories and all that to the thing, basically calling for transparency and all that kind of thing. Now, I'll take you back to 93-94. I did boycott home games that season. Had a season ticket for 1990 to then. Never bought one that season. Boycotted. Me and a guy called Michael Shields. And how that worked then was we essentially went to the car park, shouted the odds, at the board gone in and all that sort of stuff, and then went to the Oak Bar, which is still there now in Whitby Street round there, and sat there miserable, because it wasn't like the game was on the telly or, you had radio and all that. It was absolutely horrendous, right? Yeah. And then when we got to January, the 1st of January, and it was like, well, we've got the Huns coming up now, we should go and support the team, that kind of thing, and people would say, I remember saying to Michael, actually, a lot of people say we're glory hunters. He's fucking glory hunters. I've been sitting in that bastard pub all fucking day. So we go, and of course, what happens? We're 2-0 down after 3 minutes. Fucking Mars bars flying at the director's box and all that kind of stuff. It was fucking horrendous. But and then basically, the old board were skint, and they had the kind of lackey wealth that allowed people to then offer them wealth and say, you can get in.
Yeah.
How that's going to work this time, I do not know, because I mean, the first thing about it, Davey, is they're asking for transparency to a board who are not transparent.
No, I mean that's it. There's no been one statement for Celtic. There's, like you were touching on, we don't know the end game for them. There's no coming out. There's no plan there. I mean, they've even closed door. When was the last time you heard anything about youth development or nothing? There's nothing. There's no leadership. There's no statements to say this is how we're going to fix it, or this is how we're going to move forward. We're going to evolve. We don't even know. None of us we're totally in the clue, going day to day, going what the fuck's going to happen next, and we're waking up to stories about ex-players getting treated the way that's still going on the new clips of Peter Lawwell for 11, 12 years ago with the same things that are still happening these days.
So we reinvest every penny we could bring in.
Exactly, Paul, and there's no proof in the pudding at all. There's nothing. We spoke about it before. You mentioned it quite a few times about Brendan Rodgers was the only face of our club. He was the only one answering any kind of questions. But we're going to get to the stage. We all know it. He's going to not be here next season for one reason or another. It's likely going to be, unless something drastically changes, I don't want to say a puppet, but a hand-picked person, Mr. Desmond, yet again. And we will be talking about this next season again.
I've got to say as well, like, two things you touched on there, David. Firstly, Peter Lawwell. The thing about Peter Lawwell, say, I've been criticising about this, is you could talk to him and you could argue the case, and he wouldn't browbeat you. He would argue it back.
Yeah.
I remember one time he went absolutely ballistic at me for my body language.
Yes.
What? Look at you sitting there, fucking body language like that, that kind of thing, right? But you could talk to him. Nicholson, you can't. Nicholson, private school education, sees himself higher than the likes of us. And Desmond, I think, just thinks, well, I'm a billionaire. Of course I'm fucking clever. Of course I know what I'm talking about. So that's really missing. And the thing is, this kind of stuff is no answered by having wee cosy relationships with certain fan groups or people or that. You have to speak to everybody, Phelan.
Yeah.
there's no Celtic supporter, we just touched on it, there's no Celtic supporter higher or lower than anybody else. And as long as the people that they're speaking to, whether it's behind closed doors or whatever, are then bringing that information out to people. But the reality is, they're basically no speaking to anybody, Phelim. And how on earth do you run a business, as they like to call it, when you didn't engage with your customer base?
No, well, again, it just comes down to that word that Chris Sutton mentioned, and we said it again, it's arrogance.
Yeah.
At least, as you said, at least you got a hearing from Peter Lawwell, and that's admirable that he treated you as, you know, if not an equal, certainly as a human being, that he engaged you, and he had a pop at you for your body language, which is interesting. Yeah. But you know, no, not even that. No Celtic supporter is below you. No person is better than you. You know, and that's shocking. It's a shocking attitude to have to the millions of Celtic supporters around the world, that it's all about him. What I says goes, and that's not what Celtic Football Club is about, and it hasn't been from day one.
Especially when you consider he doesn't own the club.
No,
he's not the majority shareholder.
Yeah,
the fans are.
Yeah,
and yet he's been I mean, I didn't even know if that's legal. How he operates it, because ultimately, you know, you've had guys on the board there like Tom Allison and, you know, Brian Rose, and Brian Rose is an interesting one, right? Because I never knew anything about him. He used to work for Apple. He's currently on a course at Real Madrid about how to run a football business, and I'm like, oh, you know, is there anything in that kind of thing? Barcelona also run the same kind of course, right? So he might be a dark horse for coming in, but the likes of the Tom Allisons and all that mob, and fucking Brian Wilson and that, what is it they actually bring to Celtic Football Club, Davy? I mean, they've got no public presence whatsoever. Brian Wilson, when Celtic went to America last year, used his freebie trip to write about Donald Trump for a newspaper. I mean, that Celtic isn't a vehicle for anything other than Celtic Football Club.
Well, I mean, to me, and probably the majority, they're shady figures in the background, and a lot of fans wouldn't even know their names and couldn't pick them out in the street. And and another one that you mentioned, that I forget her first name, but I think she shared my surname, Mrs. Brown, the non-executive director. I mean, for people like that, I mean, that was the first time I'd ever heard of her, Paul. And to read, correct me if I'm wrong, but was it £450,000 that she's taken out of Celtic for?
No, not a year in total.
So that's
40 a year.
So there you go. So 40 grand a year though, but that's £40,000 that's just gone to an individual that nobody has any clue what they bring to the club. They've got no public presence, and they don't bring anything to Celtic, and that's the way it's been run now, isn't it? It's for these kind of individuals that are just there to line their own pockets.
The thing is, Phelim, one of the things that's popular right now, or has been for the last few years, is these kind of behind-the-scenes documentaries of football clubs. And you've seen all sorts, Man City, Arsenal, Birmingham, and so on, Salford City. The one common denominator I always see among these things is there are a group of people striving to get this club to a place. You know, whether it's a Premier League or European success or whatever it may be, they're all fighting for the one goal. I didn't see anything like that at Celtic. I feel like Celtic just have the same sort of analogue mindset that they've always had, and that the things that come to them, like a good win in the Champions League or whatever, just come by accident. They didn't have any plan whatsoever to establish Celtic again as a big European football club.
No, the evidence is there that they don't. In spite of a really good performance in Europe last season, that was clearly a one-off. You know, given the years before that, and now we're already out of Champions League. That was clearly, I won't say a fluke, but a one-off. Because the evidence is there and that's the reason why Ange left, because he wanted to progress in Europe, and that to me is the proof is in the pudding there that they don't want to compete at Europe, and that's in this day and age. That's real dereliction of duty, in my opinion. Just to go back to your previous point about the lad going to Barcelona and Real Madrid, how to run a football club, and the financial issues they've had over the years. I'm not sure I'd be going to the likes of Barcelona to learn how to run a football club, but however, that just occurred to me. But however, yeah.
Aye, it's not like it's not the chairman of Barcelona running the course. You know what I mean? But it's aye. I mean, the thing is, I seen a guy. I can't remember who it was now. Anyway, actually, it was Yogi Hughes' son saying that Nicholson's a lawyer. How on earth do these skills transfer to being a CEO and all that kind of thing? And that's the minutiae of contract dealing and all that is huge. You know what I mean? It's like, and one of the things that he threw at Don Mackay privately was when we signed Juranovic and Giakoumakis, he didn't put in sell-on clauses, and they kind of used that as, he doesn't know what he's doing, whatever, right? But again, it comes back to this whole thing about the disrespect that Celtic are showing for other clubs. Davey, we talked about a low ball and all the time. Desmond, we've agreed a fee, this, all right, offer them half. We've just agreed a fee.
It's as if they're walking about the markets of Morocco, bartering into it.
Well, that's it. And it's kind of like, if it's like, I always bring it back to our analogy, like working class people, right? If you owe me £100, Davey, and you say, I'm coming at your house to pay me it back, and then when you get here, you say, actually, I can only give you 50 now. I'm going to feel pissed off by that, because you've already told me you're paying me the £100 back, right?
Yep.
And that's the thing. If you've sat and negotiated €13 million, whatever, for Dahlberg, right, and then come back and say, actually, we're going to offer you £7,
yep,
you just be like, is this a fucking wind-up?
Yep.
But that's where we are, Davey.
Yeah, I mean, I read a thing just this morning, just literally before we came on air, Paul, and the old private jet was sitting, I don't know if you've two seen it, grounded. It was ready to go to Belgium and blah, blah, blah and everything else. But it said that deal was dead. For the minute that we went in for Dahlberg with £4 million, £4 million we offered for that guy in the first instance. I mean, nobody's going to want to deal with you at any point after that. You're going to say, right, do you know what, £6-7 million, maybe if they valued him at 8.5 and whatever else, and what he'd ended up going for to Ajax, and it just it belittles the name of Celtic. It really does. The only decent thing about Celtic that is top class elite at this moment in time is our support, and we're soon to be gone manager. I mean, the Dahlberg one is, I think it's the straw that's going to break the camel's back in future transfer dealings, because the whole of Europe will know about this and everything else here. And there's just a...
we seem to have lost Davey there.
Yeah.
Oh, he's back. He's talking, but I don't know what he's...
Sorry, my phone had been going there.
For Christ's sake.
With Bruce,
be professional on a podcast, Davey.
I thought I turned my notifications off. But what I was saying was about, obviously, we're getting in with these offers, and I mean, people are going to sit up and take notice. Word will spread between agents and clubs and everything else. Nobody's going to want to deal. Nobody's going to want to deal with Celtic.
The same thing happened in January, Phelan, with Chris Garden. And, it was like, that's who I want to replace Kyogo. Go and get him. And they just lowballed, and eventually got told to piss off. And he ended up going to Norwich. I mean, it's no wonder. I mean, first of all, right, Celtic have got a scouting operation. I don't think it's real, right? I still think we fish in very shallow waters. We look at certain markets and certain players and that. I don't think we're the slightest bit interested in anybody in Scotland, even though they've tried to get Kieran Bowie. And when I seen them was saying, €13 million for Dahlberg, who I think would have been a slightly better update on Ida. That's it, right? Similar type of player and all that, and it wasn't what we needed. I would have just went to Hibs and said, there's $7 million, would you give us Bowie? And they would have snapped your hand off. Reluctantly, but they would have snapped your hand off. But we're not interested. The signing of Kieran Tierney, I don't believe anybody scouted him. I just think they said, Kieran Tierney's available, we'll take him. Right? And now we're at the point where it's like, well, he needs games to get up to speed. How many?
Exactly.
You know, he's pulled out the Scotland squad.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were saying that, like, if he shouldn't be got to Scotland if he can't even finish a game for Celtic.
Yeah.
And nothing against Tierney and that. I know injuries have taken toll. I know a lot of people in the game think Celtic burnt him out the first time around. But surely you scout players religiously before you even think about buying them.
That's how a proper football club runs itself. Yeah, you do your due diligence, not only on managers and coaches, but players as well. Of course you do. It's a no-brainer. And as emotional and great as it was to see Kieran Tierney back, he wasn't in the Arsenal team regularly for a reason either, because he's been beset by injuries. He played some good games for Arsenal, but he wasn't the same player when he did go down to Arsenal. In my opinion, for any of the Arsenal matches I saw, he had flashes of it, and he'd never got a consistent run of the team. And there's a reason for that. You know, and there's no hiding places anymore in elite professional football for fellas who aren't fully fit. And Tierney clearly isn't fully fit, or is never going to be fully fit again. That's my worry. And he's a young lad, and he's still young, and he should be coming into the prime of his life. But the evidence we've seen so far, Paul, is not there. Well, and that's really poor recruitment.
That's the thing, Davey. At Ibrox on Sunday, you know, it was like he put in a good couple of challenges to begin with up against the boy, and he was basically like, you know, didn't think you're going past me today.
Yeah.
Fine. But you've seen it again, 65 minutes, he started to fade, and suddenly he was off the park, right? And again, even at that, going to Ibrox and you want to beat them, everything you've got and all that, we're still playing politics because Inamura, who'd been in, suddenly he's out, and the boy for Paraguay or whatever, Uruguay, comes in and, you know, looks like a fish out of water, right? Where that should have been Inamura, who's at least had some games and knows the teammates and all that kind of thing. It doesn't really augur. It doesn't really augur well for the season. And I heard the only time, because I'm so, you ken me, I've been at this for years going on about these cunts. I'm so exasperated by it, I can hardly even find the anger. But the when I did feel the anger was when a guy says to me, you know what though, this could work out really well for us. And I said, how? This could be like Brendan Rodgers' greatest achievement. I was like, do you know, see, the whole fucking point is it shouldn't have to be like that. It should actually have the full support of the club. So, Davey, before we go, have you got any hope whatsoever for the season you can give us being an East End resident and philanderer?
I take away the philanderer part, you bastard, you. No, do you know what? It's hard as fuck to be.
Is it hard as fuck?
Positive and no
philandering, or
take away that last part, but we all care so much about Celtic, and we're all hurting the new, and we don't want to come on here and have 40 minutes of just bemoaning this and bemoaning that. We need positivity. Well, that goes with his character, but I mean, we should have a bit of hope. We've got to keep the faith, to borrow the phrase, that things will somehow, fuck knows how, but will get better, because head and shoulders above any other team in Scotland, if we just put in 90% of effort, we will be there. We will win that league, but it's hard to see how it's going to happen. You know, my best hope is that you're going to get a bit of that siege mentality. Maeda, I mean, to go back to my earlier point, Ferm, about the proof in the pudding for me is that he scored one goal against Falkirk this season, and you don't doubt his ethics, his work ethic. He's still the same boy, but just like anyone he is, he's human. He's human, and I'm hoping that he's going to get a wee spark. We're looking for somebody, for John Kenny to come into the team, score a hat-trick, be irreplaceable, to keep going, to get another 2 goals in the following game, make these players hard to drop, and then the team will get better that way.
Right, okay, then. Phil, same question to you about hope without giving the Davy Gettysburg address there.
Look, without hope, there's nothing. You know, I know it's cliche, but it's true. Without hope, there's nothing, and we always hope things will get better. And there's different levels to hope as well, of course. But we've got to hope something will change, and fast, because, as Davey said, we don't want to be coming on here giving out and ranting and being Mr. Angry, as I was called during the week by a family member, which is probably not the most inaccurate thing ever said. But anyway, no, we don't. We want to be talking about. We want to be talking about the brilliance of our players and the good performances and and looking forward to the Europa League instead, as we were during the week, dreading it and with no interest in it. And that shouldn't be the way. This is Celtic.
No, it is.
That might be the catalyst. That might be the thing that changes. Is we might get a good performances in Europe that then has the knock-on effect for a domestic season. So that might be the way forward.
Oh, okay then. I think Davey's actually speaking for Celtic Park right now. He's became the fucking official club spokesman. Okay, well that was great. It was we needed an event. We needed to see where we were, and I'm glad you had the time to do it. I've just got one final thing, and it kind of segues into what Phelim said there about being called Mr. Angry. We have had so many people saying after you went viral with Liam Scales, can you call someone in the Celtic board a cunt?
No, not publicly. I think that would be.
Well, can you just say the word
Hear
cunt?
our listeners what they want,
what-
the
no.
viewers what they want, Phelim, come on.
No, I'm not saying the C word on air. No. I'm not.
Well.
No, I'm not down on that hill. No way.
Okay, fair enough. Phelim is a cunt for no. I say, man, you've got to know your fans. But this was a wee one to tide us over on the dreadful international break. And although some might say we're actually enjoying not having any Celtic now, but we shall be back after Kilmarnock at some point. And until then, Davey, try and behave yourself, will you?
As always.
See you, folks.